Welcome to SeniorFlix. We're so delighted that you've joined us on today's episode, Living with Vision Loss. We have a very special guest with us. She's a true testament to the power of resilience, adaptability, and the marvels of our modern technology. Please join me in welcoming Lillian Cornelius. Lillian, we're so glad to have you here. And I have so many questions to ask you, but how about we begin with, tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, I was born in Winnipeg many long years ago. If you want to know my age, I was born in 1930, so you can calculate. I was born into a Christian family. My dad came from Ireland, my mom came from the States, and it was during the Depression years, so it was not an easy time growing up. But both of my parents loved me and my sister Margaret so much. She was 2 years younger, and we had a wonderful life growing up, skipping and playing with yo-yos and playing with dolls and friends and going to church and going to picnics and going to the park and going swimming and doing all kinds of interesting things.
Sounds like a wonderful childhood.
It was. And also, I should say about my mom, she was a believer in all kinds of education because she was a school teacher as well. She had been a school teacher. So she made sure that we had cultural education as well. Although they couldn't afford it, she got us a ticket to the Y. We went swimming and diving and dancing and the whole bit. We did it all. And we had those tickets every year, even though it was hard. And she introduced us to books and reading and the cultural part of life. Even though life was difficult and it was Depression time, they gave us all these things because they loved the Lord and they loved us.
So, Lillian, sounds like it's a wonderful childhood that you're describing to me. It sounds like beautiful. There was a lot of love. There was a lot of laughter. There was a lot of energy. And tell us, as you were getting older, where did you go for your schooling, your further education?
Well, I went to 3 different schools. I went to Greenway, then I went to General Wolfe, then I went to Daniel McIntyre. They were all in a row, and I just followed along with the same children all through until high school.
Okay.
After high school, then I got a job, and I took typing. I dropped Latin on purpose so I could take a typing course, which I did, and that helped me get a job at an insurance company. Then I got another one at the grain company, and for that one I had to do an extra thing learning contometers. I think they don't even exist anymore. But that's what I did, and then I went to Bible school because by that time I'd saved up, I figured, almost enough money, and the rest was by faith, believing that God would see me through Bible school. And at Bible school, I met a wonderful man called Bill Cornelius. He had had another girlfriend, and I don't think I really stole him from her, but I think it was a matter of ministry. In between Bible school terms, I went up north to the Indians and did Bible vacations with children, Indian children. And he went out to assist an old man, and he was so enamored with the ministry and enjoying it so much that they called him from Bible college and said, if you don't get back here, you're not going to graduate. So he did get back, and he did graduate. And then in 1955, the 2 of us, we went off to Kenya. That was our first mission field. Our 4 children were born there. We had 3 boys and a little girl, and the little girl is still in Kenya right now, working in the slums of Nairobi. We were in Kenya for about 20 years, and then my husband was elected as missions director for the Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada. And he filled that role for about 12 years. Then he had a sudden aneurysm, very sudden, and he died after 8 days. So that was a very, very sad time for our family, for the mission in general, for all of us. It just seemed like a tragedy that couldn't be overcome. but we know we have an overcoming God who always takes us to the next stage. Whatever happens in our lives, he is in control. He's the sovereign God. And so I stayed another 4 years in the office, and then I decided I wanted to go back to Kenya. So I made arrangements, and I was going back to Kenya for 1 year to help my friend out with a Bible training program. However, the 1 year turned into 10 years. So I stayed until 2006 when I retired and came back to Canada.
Wow, Lillian, what an amazing story of your faithfulness. You continued in ministry in spite of all the challenges, and it must be so hard doing ministry and knowing that you were grieving as well.
Yes, I was grieving, but I had a wonderful group of people around me, and I felt so supported and so loved, and I had a good family. And when I got out to Kenya, I was in a situation where there were many, many missionaries, and they all loved me, and I just felt always supported. I had great neighbors beside me, and I enjoyed the work I was doing and the new people I was ministering to. So it all turned out to be a blessing. And I was so glad for that last 10 years when I was able to work with widows as well as do the Bible training. And then the time comes, when you reach the magic age. I think the magic age for me at that time was 70. So I came back, and I didn't know what was going to happen. Now I was truly going to be alone, just me. But the Lord had other plans, and it wasn't very long before I met Peter and Evelyn again, whom I had known in Kenya. And Evelyn died in about a year afterwards. And so then Peter was alone, and I was alone, and we knew each other. And he always did love me. I knew that. He always loved me because we were such good friends. And so he wanted to get married actually right away, but I said, no, let's hold it a little bit. I've been alone 15 years. I need to put the brakes on just a bit. So we got married the end of 2007. And then we were together, and that's when we were in the gardens, and then we moved to the manor.
Here at Shepherd Village.
Then we were at Shepherd Village, and that's when I think everything started.
So Lillian, what a beautiful life story. In so many places it reminded me of this Ruth story, how God wrote your love story and how he brought the right person at the perfect timings. I would love to hear more about them. We'll have to bring you in to talk about a bit more about those stories, because I think that's so unique and our audience would want to hear more about that. But life hasn't, as beautiful as so many testimonies that you have to share about all the great things that happen, but you've also overcome a lot of challenges and obstacles that have come in. And your vision loss has been one of those obstacles that came your way, but you have not let it kind of take away the thriving part of life in you. So tell us about your vision loss. When were you first diagnosed with the disease?
Well, I guess I was diagnosed, I suppose, at a routine eye exam. But that person didn't do really anything about it except tell me to take Vitalux. I don't know exactly how to explain it, but one of the things that tipped it off was I was in Kenya at my granddaughter's high school graduation with my sister. She was able to come with me, and we were at the graduation, and there was a little party or something, and we were playing a game. And this game, you had to write names down on a piece of paper and guess who that name. It could be Churchill, it could be Joshua in the Bible, any kind of a name at all. It's one of those guessing games.
Okay.
And I found out, I can't see that slip of paper. I have no idea what's on that slip of paper.
But that was the particular moment you recall where you realized that, okay, there is something happening with my vision.
Yes.
Yeah.
that sort of triggered things off. So when I went to my doctor, my main doctor, Dr. Laura from the Missionary Health Institute, wonderful doctor, and she said, I'm going to refer you to Dr. Gray, who's a specialist in vision. So she referred me to Dr. Gray, who was a wonderful doctor too, and they took, camera visions of the back of my eye, and then she would show me in her office, this is this and this is how it works. And she was very, very lovely and very explanatory as well. So then we just went with her. Then one day something else happened that surprised me a little bit. We had a little thing that we were supposed to read and a little dot in the middle, and if you ever got wavy lines or anything like that, you were supposed to let them know. Well, that happened to me. And so I phoned the doctor, Dr. Gray, and Dr. Gray, I went in to see her. She actually said, I'm sending you to Dr. Gushan.
Okay.
Dr. Gushan was in the Toronto Retina Institute for vision. So he was from Iran, actually, very interesting kind of person, very efficient. So I never thought of having injections in my eye before, but now that was the order of the day. I had two kinds of macular degeneration, the dry kind, which was in my right eye, and then I had the wet kind, which was in the left eye. The left eye was the one that could be improved. So the injections were going into the left eye. I said, well, what about the dry one? He says, can't do anything about that until it gets wet. And so there was this one day, they always did a test every time before I got the injection. So when I got that test, I knew it was really bad. So I went in there, I sat in the chair, and I didn't know what he was going to do, whether he was going to give me the injection or not. But then he just looked at this thing on the screen. He said, I'm sorry, Lillian, I can't do anything more for you. I've done all I can do, and now it's not possible to give you any more injections.
So when you first started to discover that this was getting serious with your vision loss, there was still a solution available, and that was the injections, and you kind of continued with that. And then finally, that was no longer a solution anymore, and the doctor just discloses that to you. That must be so discouraging and difficult. And you're saying to me that you were just drawing your strength in God at that time, and you didn't even cry.
Well, I don't know whether that's just my way of living or what, but no, I didn't cry. I just thought, well, what can I do? And, I had this phone, and I think by that time I had already changed the fonts to make the fonts bigger. So that
you were already processing of some of the practical things we could do. And actually, Lillian, I think the audience would love to know about how when we were in the middle of pandemic and we needed a piano player, you, at the time when we had a conversation, you knew that you couldn't see the piano keys. But in order to respond to this need, tell us about how you did that, because it was totally thinking outside the box.
Well, I just had to memorize them. I mean, they were songs that I've known for a long time, and I never played by ear. I always wished I could play by ear, but now I was going to have to force myself to do a version of playing by ear, which is memorizing them. And usually, Tahseen, you have 10 songs each time. So 10 songs, if I could get ready 10 songs, that was fine. Actually, I have 50 of them. So you would pick the ones that you would want, and I would be able to play them fine. I mean, I could see the keys. I couldn't see any notes.
But so inspirational. You didn't give up on the piano playing.
No, actually, I enjoyed it, and I was glad. I always wanted to play by ear. So I got a little bit of playing by ear, although it was more like memorizing.
Truly inspirational. But before we take a break, would you like to say a word of encouragement to someone who might be in that phase in that stage of vision loss, where they're doing the injections and soon they're going to get to that point where the doctors are going to say, there's nothing more we can do? It sounds like such a hopeless statement, but you've definitely lived it in a way that shows that it's not the end of the story. Would you like to say a word to our audience before we take a break?
Well, I would just say commit your way to the Lord and He will bring it to pass. And that really means His will, whatever He wants to do with you, He will still keep using you and you still have a life. And perhaps you will learn some new things that you will discover are a blessing to you and can be a blessing to other people. And so don't give up. Don't give up. Just believe that God has you in His hands.
Thank you, Lillian. We will continue our discussion because I have a lot to ask you about all the technology pieces that you're using to help you. So join us for our next episode with Lillian, and we will discover and navigate of how she's interacting with the world using the technology.